Welcome back to another episode of Curtis Jones Writing. I'm reading each chapter of each book if you're just tuning in. I'm on my fourth book. I've done Dad's Old Truck 1, Dad's Old Truck 2, Imagination. Dad's Old Truck, Dad's 1 and 2 are the stories of my growing up from about 9 years old or so up till about 18, 17, 18. And Love Endures All Things starts at 18 because that's how old I was when I got married, and runs through about 72 years of age and 47 and a half years of marriage to a wonderful lady. But we'll talk about that another time. Guess I ought to get started with the story. If you're in a hurry to hear these stories and can't wait, you can go to my webpage, curtis-jones-books, squarespace.com, and it has links that can take you to Amazon, where you could buy them either in ebook format or in the paperback. The I prefer paperbacks myself because I like to sit outside and read them in the sunlight. And these electronic screens are hard to read in the sunlight. And I also have a Facebook page, Curtis Jones author page at Facebook. Both of these sites have links to Amazon where you could order the books, and they both tell you a little something about each book so that you kind of know what you're to look forward to if you're getting one of the books. If you remember the last time I talked about me and Stephanie getting married, and then I talked about us leaving California, going to Oklahoma because of an event that had happened that was very strange. I don't want to give anything away in case you want to read it or go back and listen to the story that was posted before this one. And this one is Baby Makes Three, chapter 6 or chapter 5 of the Love Endures All Things trilogy. The other two books are Love Endures All Things Across the Creek. This book covers the first 15 years of me and Stephanie being married, and it's the biggest because we had to learn to adjust to each other. The next one, Love Endures All Things Across the Creek, talks about our second 15 years, and we lived off grid, at least half of that 15 years, and learned all kinds of lessons. I wouldn't want to do it now at my age. And the third one is Love Endures All Things Until Death Do Us Part. And that talks about the last 15 years, 17 years that we were married before Stephanie passed. So let's get started with this one. And I'm doing this kind of as a tribute, at least in my mind, to my dear wife who made everything work no matter what I chose to do. Baby Makes Three. Back in California was such a relief to both Stephanie and me. We moved into a little trailer Dad had let us live in when we were married. I took off uh, the hand brace from breaking my hand and started exercising my hand. I knew I had to work. Finding a job became my first objective. I went to the employment office and it was sent out to an advertising company and started the next day. I carried a bag like a postal carrier, but my bag contained only advertisements to be delivered door to door. I was carrying, I was carried to different neighborhoods, and I set out going to every door and leaving the prescribed ads. This was my job description, and it was a hot and nonstop job. It was a job and it made money. I made about $50 a week doing this. That isn't much money, but I rented a small house close to Modesto where I worked. The house had only two rooms. It was furnished, and for the two of us, it was fine. Mike's brother lived next door to us. His name was Danny Harrell. He was 3 years older than me. Pardon me. Danny was married to a girl called Linda. She loved to cook. Linda would cook sweets every day. Danny and I worked together, and I rode to work with him. We usually got home 4 or 5 every day. Linda would come out to greet Danny when we pulled up and start telling him what she had baked that day. Her trouble was that she always ate everything she had baked before he got home. Stephanie and I laughed about it when she told me, when she told him. Linda would share her baked goods with all the ladies in the neighborhood. There were 4 little houses on this street. The landlord lived at the corner. Our house was one room with a closet, or closed off bathroom, I'm sorry, with a closed off bathroom. As you came into the front door, the bed sat on the right side of the living room. The couch and the little table sat on the left side. We had a TV on a table with rabbit ears directly behind the couch. Uh, was the kitchen with a small table and 2 chairs. The kitchen had a cook stove. Our oven didn't work, and a small refrigerator. We could watch TV from almost anywhere in the house. The utilities were included, and we only paid $35 a month for the little house. My brother in law helped me go to Mexico or New Mexico to get the car that was left there 6 months ago. He helped me fix it too. When we when we were living there, when Michael was born, he was delivered at the Ceres Community Hospital. Now that we had wheels, we would soon be freed from the awful little house we lived in. Stephanie didn't like it either, but she didn't complain. She did make it into a home anyway. I traded on a trial basis my little 1962 Pontiac to Stephanie's mother for her 1957 Plymouth for a week or so if we wanted to trade cars. We had this trial time. I was to get a kickback of $200 from trading her. She had a 57 Plymouth. This was a 63 Pontiac Tempest. Well, I had Gina's, her mother's, Stephanie's mother's, car, and I had taken Stephanie to her doctor's appointment in Modesto. On the way home, I was involved in a 4-car collision. I was the number 3 car. The car behind me sped away after the dust settled. The car in the front stopped without brake lights, and the lady in front of me struck that car without hitting her brakes. She had a brand new Pontiac, which I struck from behind. I was hit from behind also. The car, the front car, left after asking the lady in the front of me if she was okay. So that left her and me on the site of the accident. Police were called out, and I was given a ticket for following too close. At that time, it was not against the law not to have auto insurance, and I didn't have any. All of this happened at the moment when Stephanie told me she was going to have another baby. I was looking away. Gina's car didn't have a scratch on it, but the new Pontiac had the imprint of the old Plymouth on the trunk and the long nose on that new car. I told Stephanie's mom about the accident, and we traded cars back. Gina had a boyfriend that had a lawyer as a brother. I got in touch with him and fought the ticket over the accident, and it was thrown out of court with no fault. But the accident would come back to haunt me later. Stephanie and I wanted to move to a nicer neighborhood, and so I looked for a better job. It wasn't long until I was hired at the Albertsons grocery store. I was paid $75 a week for 40 hours. It was a 50% increase in my pay. My job was as a stock boy and a grocery bag boy when needed. It was a good job, and I settled into a routine quickly. My shift started at 1 p.m. and I worked until 9:30. My work was mostly stocking the shelves, but I was called to the front to bag groceries from time to time. I enjoyed my work. I was given a set amount to finish stocking each day. Because of this, I would rush back to stock the shelves when I was called to the front to assist customers with carryout. I talked to everyone and came to know some of the folks, and they knew me. Stephanie and I found a nice little duplex on Donald Street. I had lived on the same street several years earlier. We rented this house for $60 a month. It had two bedrooms and a living room and a kitchen dining room combo. The kitchen had a door that had been sealed off. The door went into a studio apartment that was the back part of the original house. The house had stove and refrigerator and nothing else. We bought a bed first and had it delivered for a second from a secondhand store. We went to the Goodwill store for a chair and an end table for the living room. We also had a baby bed for Mike. Over the next month, we had fully furnished the little place. Betty had divorced her first husband, Lee, and had married Rick. They were having a hard time and asked if they could use the second bedroom until they were able to get a house. We moved Mike into our room and they used the other bedroom. Rick was able to work for himself. He cleaned floors and windows at several businesses around town. He took me with him from time to time, and I learned how to do what he was doing. It wasn't long until I had bought my own equipment and was doing the same thing at other places. One evening, they asked Stephanie and me if we wanted to go have a few beers and drive around. Stephanie wasn't interested and she didn't like beer. I said I would go, and we left Stephanie home with the baby. We were gone until very late, and when I got home, I was very intoxicated. On that night, we stopped by the dog pound, which was about a mile from where I lived. The pound had a horse in one of the pens. We liberated that poor animal and started taking it to Dad's house. Dad had two horses, and Rick wanted this one. It took until 3 a.m. to get the horse there. We went back home after we had liberated the horse. Betty and Rick went to their bedroom, and I sat down in the hall because to lie down made me feel very sick. Stephanie came to the hall and insisted I come to bed. I finally did, and as soon as my head hit the pillow, I became very sick at my stomach. I was it was churning. and ready to evacuate, I ran to the bathroom and hugged the toilet and relieved myself of what I had consumed just half an hour ago. Oh, how I felt terrible, and Stephanie was standing over me and laughing at me. She helped me with a washcloth, but she still laughed. She helped me back to bed, and in a less than a minute I was back at the bathroom on the floor. It was such a terrible experience that I never did that again. I learned the next morning that the horse in the pound was one that had been involved in an auto accident. The rider ran away. Not knowing who owned the animal, they simply put it into the dog pound to keep it safe. Rick said I owned half of the horse. I said I didn't want any part of it. I was afraid of being arrested for being a horse thief. In about 6 weeks, they moved out. They got their own place. I never spoke of the horse again. I did go to help when the horse had a stillborn colt at Dad's little farm. He asked me to pull the dead colt out of the enclosure. I crawled into the pen, and the horse was fine until I grabbed hold of the colt's leg. The mother started kicking and rearing up and whinnying, and she had struck me on my shoulder, knocking me to the ground. Mom and Dad and Stephanie yelled at and waved their hands and arms to distract the mare until I was able to roll under the fence to safety. I had a big bruise and knot where her hoof had hit me, and I was very stiff. Where am I at? I was very stiff. That was a frightening thing to go through because I was recovering from the horse. I had a little clumsy, or got a little clumsy at work. I rushed around and slipped and fell. When I fell, I injured my left knee. I was sent home about 7 that Monday and told to visit their doctor Tuesday morning. I was able to drive because I had an automatic transmission. Stephanie helped me when I got home. I went to the doctor Tuesday morning. I was unable to put any weight on the leg. The doctor said there was nothing wrong with a with it, and I was released to work. Stephanie went with me to Albertsons and to talk to my boss. I told him that the doctor had released me to work, but I couldn't put any weight on the leg. It couldn't bear it. The boss said that his hands were tied and he had to terminate me because I couldn't perform my duties. Stephanie was with me and we left there very sad. What were we to do now? After about 3 days with no improvement, I went to the welfare department for help. They sent me to a doctor, and in another 3 days, I was approved. The doctor set me up for surgery early the next week. It was to repair the damage to my knee. The company doctor had misdiagnosed my condition. There would be some changes in our life starting at that time. My love for Stephanie grew with every little help she showed me. She did it without reservation and gladly. Thank you for taking time for this story. It was kind of short, but it's a significant change in our life, and I wanted to make sure that story was written in this book. Next time I present a story, it will be I'm Leaving, and it's about a very sad event in me and Stephanie's life, and I'm ashamed of it. But that happens sometimes with young people. And I had married Stephanie when she was 14. And though she was quite mature in many ways, in some ways she wasn't. And so jealousy got a hold of me. And so I apologize to her for that. But that's what this next story will be about. I hope you're able to come back and watch it and enjoy it with me.